All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I just want to start off by saying thank you for joining today. Really looking forward to diving into Handshake. Just to do a quick introduction and give you some background on who you're chatting with today. So my name is Taverez. I sit here on our employer partnerships team. I've been here at Handshake for a couple of years now and had the privilege of working with university partners prior to joining our employer partnerships team. And before I started working at Handshake, I've been in your shoes for the majority of my career recruiting college students, and have been fortunate enough to recruit over 1,000 college students over my career, and really excited to dive into Handshake and really show you what we've been working on. So throughout the webinar today, you'll see that there's a couple of things on the control panel I want to point out. There's a place for you to submit your questions. So we'll be monitoring questions. We'll try to get to all of them as we go throughout the presentation today. There's also a hand raising button as well. So feel free to use that if you need some help with that as well. We're also going to be recording the webinar today. So we'll be sending that out at the end of the webinar, and really looking forward to kind of diving in here. So to kick things off, why we get excited about building Handshake and really where we've placed ourselves within the college recruiting ecosystem is based off of conversations that we've had with students, other talent acquisition leaders. What we're hearing today is things like flyers, career fairs, and online postings are no longer enough to recruit students today. We live in a pretty, students today are digital natives, they're mobile first. And so we're, oftentimes competing for attention with these students. And so this new age of engagement has really required companies to think a little bit differently about how they're recruiting college students today. Now, because students have so much access to information, they're savvy shoppers, we're seeing that the path to finding a job is no longer the same as it was 5, even 10 years ago. And so we used to see maybe it's just attend an info session, go to a career fair and apply to a job. But there's so many things that students do outside of that typical process that it's really caused companies to start thinking a little bit more smart about how they meet students across this complex journey. And so you think about potential ways that students are hearing about companies and how they think about finding careers. I think this slide right here really depicts a lot of the things that students are doing that really makes sense to think about as you're building your strategy. So, you look at students who, very familiar with consumer brands, they might, say to themselves, I use Google, so maybe I'll use Google every day, so maybe I'll go work at Google. They really follow those brands that they admire and think about those companies as they look at their career search. They look at alumni videos. They really rely on peers to help them understand what companies they should be working for or what types of experiences they have. Location is also really important as well. A lot of times they'll base their entire job search around where they're going to live when they graduate. So really a lot of companies are trying to think about how they can engage students around this entire complex journey. And the answer to that question is Handshake. So as we kind of dive into the product here in a second, what you'll hopefully see is that, Handshake has moved beyond just a job board. There's many touch points that sit within the Handshake ecosystem that companies are now starting to pay attention to and thinking about how they can best meet students where they're at. So when we dive into the product, you'll see things that, employer profiles, employer reviews, companies now doing virtual events, pushing branded content to students and messaging students as well. Now, to give you just a quick background here on Handshake, I want to just briefly describe how Handshake and the school partnership works. And I think this will really give you a lens through which you might look at how you would leverage Handshake to the fullest. So as you'll see here in a bit, we have over 550 universities that are using the Handshake platform. And as these schools partner with Handshake, one of the biggest things that they're relying on us for is to help them with student engagement. And what's really neat here is we help them out through that process. Handshake really becomes the engine to their career center. So Handshake powers everything from the job board, career fairs, info sessions, tech talks, coffee chats, any sort of on-campus recruitment, you can be rest assured knowing is powered by Handshake. Now, on top of that, you're also seeing on the screen here, validated student profiles. So one of the benefits with, with Handshake partnering with the school is that every enrolled student is provisioned an account by the school. So if I'm a student at UIUC, part of my enrollment comes with a Handshake account. And the school is helpful in building out some of my profile for me. They'll include my name, my major, my college, my core academic data is synced into my profile from the registrar. But as a student, I'm using that account to do many things that are career related on campus. So I'll use my Handshake account to apply to jobs. I'll use my Handshake account for signing up for events on campus like career fairs and info sessions. Handshake is the designated career portal at the schools that we partner with. Now, it's been a pretty exciting time here at Handshake. Like I mentioned, I started about 2 years ago on our university partnerships team. Back in 2016, we had about 160 schools, and we've had some tremendous growth over the past couple of years. Today, we're really excited to say that we're at 550 universities. And if you look at the top 500 schools in the country, we're at about 75% of those schools. What's exciting for you this fall is that you'll have access to roughly 750 universities. The logos you're seeing here displayed on the right-hand side and at the top of the screen are some of the newest logos that are new schools that we've been working with and that will be on the platform this fall. Now, what a lot of folks don't know, and it's kind of interesting looking at the Handshake network, is that we've really taken a really strong approach to partnering with all types of institutions. So when you look at the Handshake network, you'll notice that it's a pretty nationally representative list and diverse list of schools as well. So if you look at specifically minority serving institutions, we're really proud to say that Handshake has partnered with 23 HBCUs, 17 Hispanic serving institutions, 15 women serving colleges as well. Now, as we actually dive into what the student audience looks like, what you'll notice too is that a lot of the D&I focused organizations are represented inside of the students' profiles. So companies that have diversity recruitment initiatives and goals can feel rest assured knowing that there's a large population of underrepresented students that you can tap into and engage with. Now, Handshake is the most engaged student audience at scale. This fall, you'll have access to nearly 3 million activated students, surely giving you a place to fill your early talent needs. There's a lot of numbers here. One of the main ones I kind of want to dive into here at the bottom, you're noticing that there's a 70% student activation rate. So at the schools that we're partnering with, we're seeing 70% of those students logging into Handshake, engaging with employers. And one of the benefits, again, as I pointed out, with Handshake partnering with the school directly, is that every enrolled student is provisioned to count. So when you're recruiting out of Handshake at a specific school, the depth of access that you have at that school is really great. And so you have access to a really engaged audience. Now, really what I'm seeing from the most successful employers in Handshake, and really what I hope you take away from today, is how to evolve your college recruiting strategy. So never before has there been a network this large with such an engaged audience. So what we're seeing today from our most successful employers is they've really moved beyond using Handshake just as a job board. They're using Handshake today to message students, and they're driving attendance at important events on campus. They're messaging students to directly invite them to apply, especially for those tough to fill roles. They're pushing content to students. They're building their brand beyond just fall. They're engaging students in the spring. They're engaging students during the summertime. So that way, when fall comes up, they already have a relationship built with that student. What's been really exciting to witness from the student side of this experience is that they love getting messages from employers. What you're seeing at the bottom there is a 60% message open rate, which is really kind of hopefully you take away from that students are really engaged and really excited to connect with companies just like you. Now, every Fortune 500 company is recruiting out of Handshake today with over 250,000 employers in total. Handshake is quickly becoming the de facto place to fill early talent needs. So every company here is really finding a lot of value inside of the Handshake platform. Now, what I'll do now is actually get a chance to dive into the Handshake platform. So there's really two things that we'll focus on as we explore the Handshake platform. I want to first highlight the things that you're going to be able to do from like the core free product. And I'll do this through the lens of the student and give you an idea of what their world looks like. After we walk through the free version of Handshake, I'll make sure to highlight what we call our talent engagement suite. And so this will be a part of our paid partnership, and really excited to share with you what we've been building over the summer. All right. Okay, so what you're seeing now on my screen is the student view of Handshake. Now, I want to start first here on the student profile. So I mentioned that you'll have access to roughly 3 million of these student profiles this fall. And a couple things that I'll highlight here on the profile will be, you're noticing here at the top, some core academic data. So my name, my major, my GPA, my college, a lot of this information is being directly synced in from the school. Now, students are going beyond just their grades to really help tell the rest of the story of what they're doing on campus and put their best foot forward as with you as an employer. So you'll see other things highlighted on the profile, things like work experience. You're also seeing organizations and extracurricular activities. And really, to kind of dive into diversity recruitment, we're seeing a lot of companies look for students in D&I focused clubs on campus and using the student profile to surface those students. You're also seeing skill sets uploaded onto the profile as well. Here are my demo accounts. I'm a computer science student, so you're seeing that I know Java and I know C++ and other programming languages. So companies are using these skill sets to identify different students with particular talents. You're also seeing coursework uploaded to the student's profile. So it's a really great place for students to really put their best foot forward as you as an employer. Now, aside from the student profile, there's a lot of things that students are doing inside of Handshake today. Now, a couple things I'll touch on here. There is a specific job board that students can run searches on to find your job postings. But I think I like to highlight too also the discovery experience that students have in Handshake today as well. Like I just showed you, we have a lot of profile information that the students are putting on their profile. Part of students onboarding too, we ask them many questions, things like what industries are you interested in? What job functions do you like? Where do you want to live? And so we can really take all this information to provide a relevant experience for every single student. So if I'm a computer science student, it makes sense that I'm seeing software engineering jobs displayed to me and really kind of helps me throughout that discovery process. If you've ever used Spotify or Netflix and seen Discover Weekly, it's the same type of experience that you're seeing here with these different collections that are represented. So I'm a student at Cornell, so I see training jobs at Cornell. If I said I wanted to live in San Francisco, I might see jobs in San Francisco. Now, aside from just the discovery process for job searches, students are also coming into Handshake today to see what employers are coming on campus. So by clicking on this events tab, you can see that students have the ability to see when you're coming on campus. You can start to promote those campus tables that you have, info sessions that you're hosting, and create landing pages for students to find out more information. So to give you a quick example, if I click in here to see what a potential event looks like for me as a student, I can see some branding brought in. I can see a description of the event. I'm seeing a speaker also represented. I can see what other students are attending the event as well. It's a very social experience for the student as they think about what their peers are up to on campus. Now, the last thing I'll highlight here is that every single employer in Handshake has a student-facing employer page. And so students a lot of times are coming in today to research companies ahead of them applying to jobs. So if I pull up and just to clarify, this is all demo site here, so this is all kind of just fake data. But to give you an idea here, you have if you're here on this call, you probably have a similar employer profile. Students are coming here, they're reading a quick description about the company. And something that we just released that's been super helpful for students is reviews and interview feedback. So myself as a student, I can actually come into these employer profiles and I'm reading what my peers liked about the company. I'm reading what they wish was different, advice for other students as well. I'm also coming in and seeing what the interview process was like, what's one question you were asked. So very helpful for those students that are really trying to navigate this whole process of college to career. Now, last thing is students are also managing messages that are sent to them from recruiters. So lots of companies are coming in today and directly sourcing. They're messaging students to invite them to key events on campus. So as a student, I can actually click in here and I can manage all the different messages that recruiters are sending me. Sometimes it's a link to apply to a job. Sometimes it's an event registration link as well. Okay. So hopefully big takeaways from the free version of Handshake and through the lens of the student are Handshake is definitely, we've moved beyond just a job board. Many things that our students are doing in the platform. What it really lends you is an engaged audience that you should think about tapping into. Now, what I want to quickly highlight here is what you're seeing in this graph is what student engagement looks like in Handshake today. So as you'd expect, there's obviously a peak in the fall, but what we're seeing quickly here is that as we look into the springtime and even over the summertime, students are logging into Handshake, they're looking for jobs, they're exploring employers, they're looking for their next job. So this surely becomes a place for you to really think about, engaging students. So I want to introduce you to the Talent Engagement Suite. The Talent Engagement Suite, I really believe really sets companies up to tap into this engagement throughout the entire calendar year. And we bucket it into a few different value points, which I'll dive into in the actual product here in a bit. But one of the things we hear from companies all around the country is that a lot of times when they're doing things like career fairs or info sessions, a lot of times they're kind of crossing their fingers, hoping that the right students walk across their booth. And so using Handshake Segments, we help companies shape priority student audiences using the profile information. So whether it's students that know specific programming languages, that are graduating in a specific time frame, that want to move to a particular location, segments allow you to identify that priority student audience. Now, if you think about your brand, there's many places that students are experiencing your brand in Handshake, as you just saw. One of those is your employer profile. Some of that will be your job postings. What we hope to do with the Talent Engagement Suite is equip you to create an inclusive brand that speaks to a diverse audience. So I'll show you what your free page looks like versus your paid page looks like with the Talent Engagement Suite, and how you can speak to those different audiences. Now, the other thing we're seeing here with the Talent Engagement Suite is the ability for you to connect with students through event check-in. Obviously, campus ROI or event ROI is top of mind for every company. So you want to make sure that you're capturing every experience with every student as they come to each event that you're hosting. And then the last thing, and really the engine that really drives the Talent Engagement Suite, is the ability to run campaigns. So what you'll quickly find out is that with the Talent Engagement Suite, you have the ability to activate students at scale, reach your priority student segments, and really help ensure that they have a great candidate experience as they're working with you. Now, underpinning all of this Talent Engagement Suite is a layer of analytics. And so I have an opportunity to kind of dive into and show you how companies are really using a data-driven approach to college recruiting when they partner with Handshake. So we'll go ahead and jump back into the product here, and I'll show you what this looks like through the lens of the student, or excuse me, through the lens of an employer. Okay. So for those of you that have already logged in Handshake, you're probably familiar with this view. This is what you're seeing when you come into Handshake. Now, what I'll highlight here on the left-hand side are this new tab here that says Segments. So Segments is going to be the place where you start to track your priority student audiences. Within these segments, you can create as many different cohorts of students that you're interested in engaging with. And as I dive into actually show you how to create these, you'll see the different types of ways you can shape these segments. Now, just as a quick reminder, this is just my demo site here. And as you come into build segments, you'll notice on the right-hand side what your student audience is shaping out to be. So again, this fall, you'll have access to roughly 3 million students. Right now, my demo site, you see just right around 80,000 students. Now, to scroll down here, you'll see the different dimensions you can use to shape these segments. One of those will be schools. You can create segments based off of the specific school the schools that you're recruiting at. You can also see the ability to shape segments off of major, graduation date, school year, work authorization, GPA, past companies the student has worked at, student location preferences. So as a quick reminder here, as I mentioned earlier, when students onboard, we're asking them where they want to live. And so you can use this information here to really help you identify the students that want to move to your tougher markets. So if you have a tough market to fill, you can come here, shape the segment that really speaks to those students that want to move to that specific part of the country, and start to activate those students as well. You're also seeing student interests. So this is really, really interesting. So these are industry interests that the student has specified that they're interested in. For the companies that are becoming more major agnostic as they think about recruiting students, a lot of times they just want to find out what students are interested in their specific industry. So they're using this specific dimension to identify the students to really help engage with them as well. Now, the second bucket that you're seeing here is skills and experience. So as we looked at the student profile, you saw the different skill sets students are uploading onto their profile. This becomes another dimension you can use to shape your segment here. And then also past job titles. So the benefit of using skills and job titles is that whenever you're engaging students, you're essentially pre-qualifying the students that already have the relevant experience that you're looking for. Now, the last bucket that you're seeing here is underrepresented groups. So one of the things that Handshake does to save you a lot of time is we've actually indexed a lot of the D&I focused groups into these different buckets that you're seeing displayed here on my screen. So students that are in women in business, Society of Women Engineers, sororities would be bucketed into this female-focused grouping. And you can see the respective groupings as well, but we're really excited about this because it gives you direct access to underrepresented talent. Underneath that, you're seeing institutions as well. Like I mentioned, Handshake has a large minority-serving institution population. So for folks that don't necessarily have the resources to travel to different HBCUs around the country, this gives you direct access to those schools and those students. So what we're doing this summer is we're actually working with companies to help them shape their different segments that they want to start engaging with this fall. And we'll go through an exercise with you of defining various schools, various majors, different school years that you're looking to engage with, and really kind of shaping out things like skill sets, job titles. So this way you know well ahead of time who your priority student audiences are. Now, one of the neat things about Handshake is we look at the different segments that we build out, we can give you some suggestions on how narrow or how broad the segments you're building are. And we can give you insight into thinking about how many students you should be engaging with and ensuring that you're always reaching the top students. And so just to clarify too, so segments and everything that I'm talking about this part forward will be part of our paid product. Now, the last thing I'll highlight here with segments is these are live entities. And so what that means is that as students are updating their profile, this will allow them to fall in and out of your segments. So a good example could be if you set a GPA threshold of 3.0, and maybe a student has a 2.8, but they pick up their grades and now they're at a 3.2. They would then fall into your live segment. This gives you the, you should feel rest assured knowing that the students that you're engaging with are always going to meet your criteria. We see a lot of companies excited about this because if they're sourcing out of their applicant tracking system, a lot of times they're not really sure how up to date the student's resume was, especially as they're kind of going throughout their college career. A lot of times they might pick up an internship at another company, which would then qualify them for working at your company. So these are always going to be live and up to date and helpful as you think about your outreach. Now, once you've built segments, the second thing you're going to do is be able to run campaigns to these students. So if I click on campaigns here, this will give you an idea of how you can start to set up messaging to go around, go out to all the students as it pertains to your recruiting calendar. So what we're doing with companies this summer is we're actually helping them set up messaging around all their key events for this fall and the spring. We're helping them set up campaigns around all the important, job expiration dates or tough to fill roles. So this way that during the fall time when things are busy, they're not having to jump into the product a ton and kick off messages. Really, the campaign is meant to take the burden out of sourcing through automation and really just show you the results. So what I'll walk you through here is the workflow on how you go through and creating different campaigns. Okay. So what you're seeing here in this campaign setup, a couple things. So obviously you'll be able to name these campaigns. So I'd come in here and we'll do an example of maybe you're having an event on campus and you want to promote that event to ensure that the right audience shows up to your important event. So what I'd be able to do is come in here and we'll just say info session just to make it general. And then I can come in here and start to attach different things. Now, the benefit of attaching a job or an event to a campaign is that it allows us to embed a link to give students a place, basically some sort of call to action. So if you're embedding a job, this gives the students a link to directly apply to your job posted in Handshake. If you are promoting an event, this gives them a RSVP link that they can register for your event. So in this case, we'll go ahead and click events here. Now, as you just saw through the free side of Handshake, you can create these events and have these promoted inside of the actual student experience. You'll then be able to come in and select a specific event that you posted in Handshake. Now, the next thing you're seeing here is the student segment. So as you think about the student segments here, these are, again, defined by you. So you've already come in ahead of time this summer. We've helped you shape out different segments and student audiences that you'll then be able to attach to different campaigns. So for example, if you're looking to hire more women engineers and you've already shaped that segment, that's now a segment that's attached to this campaign. Now, one of the neat things about Handshake is you saw from the student side that there's a lot of different touch points and different things that they're doing to engage with companies. Some of them are looking at jobs. Some of them are looking at employer profiles. Some of them are applying to jobs. And so one of the things that's been helpful for companies is targeting the right students within these segments. And so what we're introducing this fall is the ability to use behavior to really ensure that you're reaching out to the right students. A lot of times I hear from companies that they hear about passive students that are maybe walking by their career fair booth. Maybe they're looking at their company page or their job postings, but for whatever reason, they're not applying. They want to specifically run outreach to those specific candidates to take them from passive to active. And so using this behavior or this engagement on Handshake, we call it, you can specifically target those passive students. Now you're noticing exclusion at the bottom of this form here. So some of the things that we're helping companies do is to ensure quality as you think about outreach. So we can actually automatically exclude students who've already applied to a job at Handshake or received a message from someone else in the company or yourself. And we're even helping companies upload do not contact lists to remove students from campaigns. So the next step here is creating the actual message. So you'll notice here that we suggest relative scheduling based on when the event is set up. So you'll see send before event, and I can actually specify when I want this message to go out. So in the case of this example, I want this to go out 4 weeks ahead of time. You'll also notice that you have the ability to create custom subject lines and custom messages. For the purpose of this example here, I actually have some templates that I've already created. And so to help with the entire company, you can actually create global templates that every recruiter can use. And so they'd come in here, they'd click insert template, and I can click event invite. Now you'll notice here a couple things in the message. One thing we are doing is we're personalizing every single message that goes to the student. So as you think about personal outreach, of course, you want the student to feel special. And so they don't know they're part of a group message. It's a one-on-one experience for the student. So they would see their first name embedded in the message. Hope your semester is going well. I want to reach out because we're looking for computer science majors for entry-level software engineering position. There's a link that's embedded in the message, which allows the student to register for the info session. Now, what's also helpful is the ability to add follow-up messages. So maybe I want to ensure that I have a high show percentage for this event that I'm doing. So I can actually come in here and say, 2 days before the event, I want to send a follow-up or a reminder message to the students. And this will go specifically to students who RSVP'd for this event. I could then come in and drop in my template for follow-up or reminder in this case. And I'm seeing a quick reminder to be 10 minutes early, dress casual, and bring a resume. So once I've determined my messaging, I can set the schedule here. You can see I have one message going out 4 weeks before and another one 2 days before. I can click schedule campaign. And now I have this message set up this summer, then already in place for my fall time traveling. Now, one of the things that you're kind of seeing different segments that I've been talking about. In this case, we're attaching a segment we've created for women engineers. One thing I just kind of want to clarify around how we're actually grouping underrepresented candidates. So as we looked at the student profile, you'll remember that different students upload these organizations onto their profile. So if I'm in society or SHIP or SWE, then I have that listed on my profile. So one thing that Handshake does to save you time is we actually index those for you. You, of course, can specifically target various organizations. But if you're looking just for like a general grouping, say any student that's in a women-focused organization, we actually index those for you. So example would be SWE, women in business, sororities. We'll index all those into a women-focused grouping there. Okay. So you just saw how campaigns are ran, and you can see how this saves you time as you are traveling around during the fall time. Obviously, as you're messaging students, you want them to come to a well-branded page and have a unique experience when they look at your company. So what I want to highlight now is how we help companies accomplish that. So I'm going to actually jump back into my student account here to give you some insight on how students are perceiving brand today and what it would look like through the lens of a paid partnership. Now, if you remember when we first looked at the employer profile, it's a pretty basic profile. It just has an about section and a couple of logos. So what we do with the paid partnership I'll go and highlight this page here. So visually, it looks a lot more appealing. The banner runs across the entire page for the students. Now, these are what we call dynamic pages. So based on the student viewing the page, we actually give them or serve them up a unique experience. The whole idea is that if I'm a computer science student, I probably want to see other computer science students that work at your company. I want to know about the software engineering internship, and I want to know what it does for me. If I'm a business student, maybe I want to see your customer-facing roles. I want to see customer service roles that I can apply for, and I want to see the experience of other business students that have worked at your company. That's exactly what you can accomplish with the employer profile through the Talent Engagement Suite. So you'll notice here at the right-hand side, there's an employee perspectives slideshow. So we'll actually help you curate these and include these on your page. But based on the student viewing the page, like I mentioned, they're going to see a different testimonial. So a good example is if I'm a computer science student, the first testimonial I should see is Sam's, versus maybe I'm an English major and I want to know what it's like to work at your company. Now I'm seeing Catherine's profile and her unique experience as an English major. The thing to keep in mind is that as students look in research online, they're really asking themselves 3 questions. They want to know what your company does. They want to know what does it mean for them, and is there anyone like them that works at your company? So the employer profile is the easy place for you to highlight that and answer all those questions. Now, other thing I'll point out here that's also unique about this page is the ability to embed media content. So videos and pictures, different events you're doing with your interns this summer should be highlighted on your employer profile. The last thing I'll highlight here at the bottom is the Just For You section. So this is your opportunity to essentially tell the specific student and from their background why it's exciting to work at your company. Now, the most important, or the 2, I guess, heaviest visited pages from a student's perspective with your company is the employer profile and your job postings. The great thing about this is that we actually pull this information, not just on your employer profile, but also onto your job postings as well. We're seeing a lot of companies really benefit from this in the sense that they're really able to bridge the education gap with the students that they are working with. A lot of times we find at career fairs specifically, we spend a lot of time educating students about the company and less time selling them on why it's exciting to work at that company. So this employer profile is a really great place for you to give students the ability to learn before they chat with you. Now, for those of the folks on the call that run a digital strategy, so maybe you have schools that you don't necessarily travel to, but you're trying to build brand at those schools and determine if it's worth the ROI to go physically visit, the employer page is a great way for you to tell the story of your company to those students. We're seeing a lot of companies today pushing their content and employer profile to those students and try to engage with them through this employer profile. They're able to tell the story, engage with the student, and eventually have them to apply to key roles on the position at the company. Last thing here you're seeing at the top of the page is the featured job. So this really gives you the ability to direct students to the tough to fill roles and ensure that they're not missing a job posting across all the jobs that you have posted inside of Handshake today. Now, one quick question I'll answer around alumni. So we're seeing a lot of companies actually highlight the specific alumni from schools that they want to showcase. So a lot of times we'll have someone in leadership who graduated from, let's say, we'll say Cornell here, that we want to highlight that unique leader who's been at that school and graduated there. We want to have the students at that school see that someone in leadership came from that school and it's an exciting place to work. So you can pick the different students that come in this. They can be any student from any school that you want to highlight inside of this page. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, underpinning all of this, all these different features is a layer of analytics. So at a high level, one thing I want to point out is that Handshake is a pretty unique place to provide insights to companies. So as I mentioned, there's over 550 schools on Handshake today. This fall, there'll be about 750. There's 3 million activated student profiles. Every Fortune 500 company is recruiting at a Handshake. So with all the different touch points that students engage with, whether it be updating their profile, viewing jobs, following employers, getting messages, all those different touch points really gives us insight to help companies run a data-driven college recruiting program. What we've been able to help companies do is, I think about this in 3 different ways. We can really provide with this large data set, help them do some strategic planning. A lot of times companies want to know like where they should be recruiting. We have a particular candidate that we look for. We go to specific schools. We want to know if there's any of those students anywhere else around the country. Handshake is in a great place to be able to provide those insights. We also look at just overall efficiency as it pertains to your specific company. We can track and measure engagement results from your different investments on campus. Maybe you want to know what ROI looks like at the events that you're doing. We're in a great position to really help you, track those outcomes and really start to measure how effective your on-campus activity is along with all your sourcing efforts. And the last thing you're seeing here is just industry info as well. Many companies are interested in seeing how they compare with different peers within their industry. We can really give you insight to show you, where you're at and ways to bridge the gap if you're behind or things you can double down on to stay strong within your strategy. To give you a quick example here, this is what a dashboard looks like or report looks like that we typically give companies to better help them understand those different challenges that they're having. So whether it's seeing seasonal views of job views and understanding where this compares within your talent or within your talent peers, looking and breaking this down across different schools that you're recruiting from and helping you understand your brand strength at each individual school as it pertains to job views. You're also seeing on the right-hand side different job applications as well. It's really important to think about what your conversion rates looks like. And so by understanding how many job views you have and how many applications you're getting, you can really start to tweak and A/B test the different approaches that you're taking to impacting those students who are thinking about applying to your jobs. Now, one of the things I'll kind of highlight here as we getting close to wrapping up, and by the way, one thing I didn't mention here is the end of the webinar, we'll take some time to answer some more questions as they've been coming in. But I think I want to just really point out a couple of success stories that we found to be really exciting as we've worked with various partners in different industries. So I think IBM is a really great example. They're really using Handshake to tap into underrepresented groups through virtual engagement. They do some really neat things around virtual events, on-site headquarters that they give tours of, and let students tune in live and join those different events. And they're seeing, 6.3x increase in applications to key roles using this specific type of approach. M&T Bank's another great one. They had a 161% increase in qualified applicants. They use Handshake ahead of every single campus event that they do to ensure that every on-campus interview slot is filled and that the schools that they recruit from virtually, they're able to scale their brand at those schools as well. Fox is a great team as well. They have a small team that really is looking to reach outside of local schools here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So they really rely on Handshake to expand and start to extend their reach to new universities across the country. So as you're seeing here, just as a recap here, and I'm going to get ready to answer a few questions, the different buckets or value adds with the Handshake Talent Engagement Suite kind of bucketed into a few different ways. You saw how you could enhance your employer branding. You saw how you can maximize your different event investments, reach students at scale, use segmentation and analytics. And, really the only thing we haven't talked about is the world-class customer success team that sits around this whole partnership. So what I'll do now is answer a couple of the questions that have come in. And so if you pull up the GoToWebinar control panel, you'll notice that there's a question mark. So if you want to submit any other questions, I'll try to get through as many of these as I can. Okay, so some of these will just kind of be kind of random questions here, but I'll just answer a few of these as I can. So one of the questions was analytics. Are those paid for? So that does come with the Talent Engagement Suite or Handshake Premium. So that is a paid service entirely. Second question was, it's a great question. Is it better to download resume and mass email from a CRM or run campaigns on Handshake? So this was really important here. I want to make sure I bring this to life and why it's actually better to message students through Handshake. So one of the things that maybe I can clarify is when you do send a message to a student from Handshake, there's actually three things that happen. So one of those things is they do get an email. And so the benefit of sending this directly through Handshake is that it goes directly to their .edu email address. So because we have the partnership with the school whitelists any Handshake email coming to the student. And so as opposed to maybe ending up in their spam folder, you have direct access to their inbox. So they do get an email. The second thing is they also receive an in-app notification. So as you recall, you saw the inbox that students manage where they have all the recruiters that are messaging them they can reply back to. The third thing is students use a mobile app. So we have a mobile app that students can reply back to you on, and so they also receive a push notification from those messages. So for that reason, we're seeing companies rely on Handshake to send the messages because they're guaranteed 3 touch points. As you saw at the beginning of the presentation today as well, there's a 60% read rate. So things like, so it's compared to like an industry standard and just a regular email, that's 15%. So we're seeing companies have better traction using Handshake messaging. Now, the last thing I'll point out too is just from the resume download perspective, we're actually seeing companies find more value in the Handshake profile. A lot of times students are building resumes for multiple types of companies. And so it might not be the most relevant resume that you could be working with as opposed to their profile. The profile is an entire picture of the student and everything they've been working on. It's live, it's updated by the school frequently. So you can be rest assured knowing that you're more likely to get success working with the Handshake profile that's constantly being updated as opposed to a stale resume that's in your applicant tracking system or CRM. Now, one thing we're going to do is, and obviously as we get ready to wrap up here in a bit, you'll be getting a recording of the webinar. Obviously, questions around pricing we'd like to answer one-on-one, so we'll definitely feel free to reach back out when you receive the email, and we'll be happy to talk to you about different pricing for your company. So as we wrap up here, last thing I want to touch on, so we do have an upcoming webinar that I'd love to just kind of quickly promote. So we have 5 tactics to get the most out of engineering career fairs. That's going to be Wednesday, August 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. So really looking forward to hopefully connecting with all of you here soon. I really appreciate the time that you took to connect today, and we look forward to continuing the conversations. Have a great day.